Since its release, Jurassic World Dominion has grossed over $600 million worldwide at the box office, placing it firmly at 5th place in this year's top-grossing films so far. However, the ratings and reviews have been fairly disappointing, with a particularly awful 30% on the tomato meter currently, and I can understand why. But before I get further into reviewing this mess of a sequel, please consider subscribing and switching on notifications, as it really helps support our channel. And if you are feeling particularly generous, give us a like as well. That tells YouTube that this video is worth showing to others. In my previous video, where I reviewed Top Gun: Maverick, I commended that film for its brilliant writing and simple story that beautifully blends the action with the emotion. Jurassic Park Dominion is a great example of the exact opposite. It wastes the trilogy's established heroes and legacy heroes with unenthusiastic and convoluted writing, which totally eradicates any inkling of an emotional through-line, making it a difficult film to get through even with the cool dinosaurs. I'm going to give a few examples of where I think Dominion went wrong. My first issue is with the action sequences that often belittled themselves by not being consistent with the established rules. For example, let's take the chase scene in Malta, where Owen and Claire are battling some highly trained dinosaurs. In the first on-foot part of Claire's chase sequence, she manages to stay ahead of the dinosaur chasing her, a few times using obstacles to outwit it, but also seemingly outrunning it, especially on the roof. This would be fine if it wasn't for the second part of the chase sequence, where she ends up in a pickup truck with Kayla the pilot. At this point, the two dinosaurs chasing them catch up with them at the speed of the truck, requiring Claire to fight back. The problem is the rules of the chase change midway, ruining the tension of the first half. How is it that Claire can outrun this dinosaur if it can go as fast as a moving vehicle? It looks like Claire is a fast runner, but she most certainly is not as fast as that truck. Another example of this rule breaking is when the T-Rex teams up with the Tyrannosaurus against the Giganotosaurus. Apologies for my pronunciation. As awesome as it was, it's my understanding that all three of them would want to establish dominance, so I'm not sure what evolutionary instinct would cause them to join forces. If you are an evolutionary biologist, then I would love to know if this is realistic, but it sure felt convenient and going against what had already happened in the film. Now, the second big issue that I had with Dominion is with the nonsensical dialogue. If we take the aforementioned chase sequence in Malta, later on in the scene, the two women reach Kayla's plane and are preparing for takeoff, whilst Owen arrives on his motorcycle chased by two dinosaurs. Owen does a death-defying stunt and gets on the plane as it takes off, and Kayla says, "Still got it." But what does she still have? What would she have lost the ability to do as a pilot? Fly a plane? No. Take off? No. If this was a plane she hadn't flown since she was in the Air Force or for a very long time, maybe, but it was literally her own plane that she had flown within the last 24 hours. Owen, whose character by the way had very little lines in this film, was the one who did the stunt, so it would make a lot more sense for him to have said this line, considering this was the first big stunt we saw him do. There were many lines like this that landed awkwardly, disrupting the flow of the film, such as when Ellie smashes a cable with an axe in the server room and then says, "Damn, that felt good." The reaction just didn't match the action. They also ruined actually cool lines, such as "Don't move" from Alan and Owen, which references the original Jurassic Park, but in Dominion the whole group start moving shortly after the line is said, which combines my first issue with my second one. The third main issue I have is relating to the exposition and inciting incidents of this story. In terms of exposition relating to Maisie and her mother Charlotte, scientist Dr. Henry Wu explains that Charlotte reproduced by herself. She cloned herself just like Blue does, just like many lizards do. She then finds out that she has a rare condition and alters the DNA of Maisie so that she doesn't have it, whilst Charlotte herself dies from it later on. I feel like the order of events make very little sense when they could have made a lot of sense. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but the thought process of Charlotte just seems particularly narcissistic and slightly unhinged for a beloved scientist. If she didn't know she had this condition and really wanted a child, why would she choose to experiment instead of reproducing using the normal routes? She risked her fertility, her life, and the life of her child. The safer and saner sequence of events would have been if she had found out about her condition before having a child. Therefore, her decision to experiment would have limited variables, not involved other people, and, killed two birds with one stone. Revolutionize science and fulfill your dream of becoming a mother. In terms of inciting incidents, Maisie's kidnapping is what gets our established heroes, by which I mean Owen and Claire, to the Biosyn lab, whilst our legacy heroes, Ian, Ellie, and Alan, get there after the genetically modified locusts spread around America. However, at the start of the film, Dominion shows us a montage of dinosaurs living free amongst humans and killing a lot of them. And then at the end of the film, we get a montage of the same free dinosaurs living harmoniously with humans. Nothing that happened between those two montages affected the world's dinosaur situation. The ensemble of heroes succeeded in bringing down Biosyn, but having those two montages top and tail the film implied that there was a deeper impact, but this was never achieved, and this lack of cohesion in the story was made worse by those wholly disconnected inciting incidents. This contrasts with the original Jurassic Park and the first Jurassic World, whose stories were far more simple and easily more effective because of it. Furthermore, it felt like the legacy heroes were completely wasted. They discussed the trauma from their past, but never seemed particularly affected by it, acting like these were totally normal and manageable situations. I think Alan felt more uncomfortable ordering a coffee from a Gen Z barista than he did grabbing his hat from in front of a dinosaur that should have probably eaten him. And yes, the more I think about it, the funnier it gets. But considering the weight of his character, this light-hearted satire devalued his past experiences when we really needed them to come through. In terms of established heroes, I will commend Bryce Dallas Howard for doing her best to make us feel the peril. She truly exhausted herself trying to salvage this script, whilst in the meantime, Chris Pratt looked fairly bored for most of the film. The bad guy, played by Campbell Scott, may not have been the most famous face in this film, but at least he had some semblance of individuality in his performance. And yes, Jeff Goldblum has some excellent lines in this film, but certainly not enough to save 2 hours and a half of it. One of his lines, I think, encapsulates the feeling many audience members will probably have after watching this film. He says, "Jurassic World? Not a fan." And that touches on the real shame of this film. As a sequel, it waters down the trilogy. Jurassic World may not have been as good as Jurassic Park, but it was exciting as a reboot and certainly much better in retrospect considering the atrocity of the sequel. Kayla at one point asks Owen, "You want to ask questions or take the ride?" And this too relates to the experience of this film. It feels indicative of what I sincerely hope must have happened during pre-production. Someone questioned the script and got shot down by the producers wanting to make a quick film for a quick profit, because it would be awful to think that everyone involved in this film was happy with this script as it is. Personally, I would have preferred to not take this ride, because the ride is simply not good enough considering the beloved origins of this cinematic world. Maybe it's okay for children who love dinosaurs, but even then, the 12A PG-13 rating eliminates a lot of that potential audience. Overall, Jurassic World Dominion is a discombobulated and disappointing sequel. The dinosaurs were spectacular, but they were not enough to save this confusing and overly complicated script that diminished its characters and detracted from the action. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe and switch on notifications so you don't miss future videos, and comment below with your thoughts on the film. For more film content, feel free to follow us on Twitter, Letterboxd and TikTok. Links in the description. Otherwise, this has been Tea Break Film Reviews. My name's Michelle, and I hope you have a great day.